Welcome to the Jon and Lebo show. I'm Lebo. John, how you been?
I'm doing good, man. There's so much to talk about. A lot of stuff going on in NBA free agency. Obviously, the All-Star game. We're gonna cover all that for you right now. But it's been a little bit. It's been a while. What's it been? A couple weeks. We've both been
Yeah,
busy.
a lot of stuff's happened. KD signing to the Warriors. Free agency in general has been going full swing, and we're in the thick of it. Football season is going to start kind of soon, preseason at least. So I'm excited. This is like the worst week of the year for sports, but we do have free agency to talk about, fortunately.
Yeah, we do. And there have been July 1st was just madness, not only because of all the signings, because we see that every year, but just the fact of the contracts, because the cap's going up next season. So I guess teams are trying to look for they're trying to get big contracts or what everyone will think to be big contracts out of the way now. And then next year they won't seem as big. Like last year with Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, 5-year, $90 million deal then was a lot of money. Now, compared to other contracts, doesn't seem like that much, especially for the caliber of players that those guys are.
Yeah, and that's why you saw a lot of guys sign these 1 year deals so they can renegotiate their contract and get as much money as possible.
Yeah, and yeah, for like a player option and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
But yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, KD, the biggest headline. That one was huge. Al Horford was an underratedly big one,
yep.
and there were just a lot and some under the radar, good, bad. We also saw Ryan Anderson get 4-year, $80 million from the Rockets. Clippers sign a few questionable guys. Dwayne Wade left. This is the
Yep.
first year we're going to have a Kobe-less Bulls, a Heat-less Dwayne Wade, Spurs-less Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan, one of my favorite players of all time.
Yeah, big
And
news of him retiring.
crazy.
Where
It's just nuts.
do you think he's the best player of this generation?
I think that I would hold him in a higher regard than Kobe Bryant. I would place him as the greatest power forward of all time.
I think that's I definitely put him as the number one power forward of all time. It's tough to pick between him and Kobe because I
It is.
mean
It
they
is.
both have won what five rings each. They've both been the face of their franchise. I just respect Tim Duncan because there's no one else like that in the NBA who's as timid and soft spoken as he is, yet dominates on the court in the way he
And,
does.
and look at the guy that he is. He's so humble. He has just such great character. You will never, ever, ever see him go on a big farewell tour.
Exactly.
My dad told me this a few years ago, and obviously I felt it as well. When Tim Duncan's done, you're not going to see him do a big farewell tour, announce it the year before, say it's his last season. One day you'll just wake up, he'll be gone. And I know it sounds like a fucking oh my god. It sounds like a grandpa dying, but it's true.
Yeah, no,
And it feels like that. Timmy had the gray hair and he had everything.
yeah.
It's
He literally sent out a press release. You look at David Ortiz, who gave Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter crap. Like, I'm not the guy who does that. Then he goes around and does it. This whole farewell tour
I
where he
am
has an
never
entire
ever
season.
doing a farewell tour ever. By the way, it's my last year.
By the way, I'm retiring at the end of the season. So it's ridiculous. That was extremely hypocritical. But Tim Duncan's not the guy to do that. He doesn't want that attention. He's a product of Greg Popovich, after all. But it's the end of this season. It's the end of a generation of basketball, an era of basketball, with both Kobe and Tim Duncan retiring. And now there's only what 9 players that were drafted in the '90s still left in the NBA. That's crazy.
That is ridiculous, and we're just the game is moving on to a different direction, man. We'll just have to see. But I want to go into. I know him retiring is sad, but I just want to go into free agency. I want to go into all the moves that happened, everything along those lines. I just want to say that I have a few winners, I have a few losers. You do too. I'm going to start off with the obvious winner, Kevin Durant. We got to talk about this. The Warriors signing Kevin Durant, that 2-year, $54 million deal, player option after this year. Guy just going to the best possible place for him to win. I don't want to get into whether it was a good move by him, bad move by him, the NBA's fault. I just want to him going there. The Warriors obviously benefited the most from free agency with that. So we don't need to go with that into winners and losers. Obviously, that's a winner for both of us. Warriors lost a lot of their bench to sign him to make the cap room. Signed a few guys for the vet minimum. Zaza Pachulia, hopefully to replace Andrew Bogut. David West, he'll probably replace a guy like Mo Spates coming off the bench, a veteran guy. And getting some other guys like James McAdoo, Looney, getting those guys in there. Maybe they'll be a part of that second unit for the future. So the Warriors, they're the winner. But I want to go into other teams. And nobody, and I mean nobody, is talking about – and this isn't just like free agency winners, losers. We're just talking current offseason so far. And I got to talk about the Orlando Magic because they signed Serge. They got the trade with Serge Ibaka, which worked out well for them too, obviously. But at the time, they seemed like the losers of the trade. Now with KD leaving and Oladipo there with the situations, it's more even. I still think OKC ultimately won it. But Ibaka provides the ability to play that beautiful stretch four, his defensive ability to block shots, his versatility. Now he's with Orlando. They just made a huge shift from having a front court of Nick Vucevic, who's one of the softest big men in the NBA. Sure, he'll average 19 and 9 a game. He doesn't play defense. And that's why he hasn't been an all-star. So you have a guy come in obviously Serge Ibaka, he's not going to play center. He'll play power forward. And then you sign Bismack Biyombo. Now, that's a guy that's your starting center. That's a guy that's going to block shots and protect the rim, and spacing won't even be an issue. I know, obviously, he's not going to get the ball much. But offensively, defensively, there's going to be a ton of spacing between those two starting. And I think that was one of the biggest jumps in front courts, obviously the biggest defensive ability jump in front courts that I've seen in the NBA in a while. But just overall talent, because you have those two guys, and you also have Aaron Gordon, who they drafted 4th overall 2014. And he can obviously, he's so athletic. He might even evolve to playing a little bit of the three. And they signed Jeff Green. They locked up their guard, Evan Fournier, 5-year, $85 million. Obviously, that looks like a lot of money. But also take a look at what other guys are getting. Evan Fournier was a 17-point scorer per game. He's a pure scorer, that guy. He's a pure scoring guard. And to go along with Elfrid Payton, those two will complement each other well. Not to mention with the Magic signing DJ Augustine, he'll be a good backup sixth man, and that was a good contract that wasn't really costing that much. We saw what Augustine could do in Chicago. So, in my opinion, a sleeper winner of free agency in the offseason, the Orlando Magic definitely up there.
Well, I think when you look back at that trade for Serge Ibaka, it looked bad at the time, but it's clear they had a plan, and they wanted to develop their front court, and they wanted to have a team that had that was more well-rounded. And I think right now this is a better team going into this upcoming season. Oladipo is a great player, and I think for the Thunder it worked out well, especially if they were planning to bring back Kevin Durant, which obviously they were. But they made some good moves, and overall they've become a better team as a result of bringing Serge Ibaka and Bismack Biyombo in and signing Fournier to that deal. They also have Jeff Green, as you mentioned, and Elfrid Payton. So they have a pretty well-rounded team, and there's not really one superstar on this team, but overall, top to bottom, they're good. And they're potentially – do you think they're potentially a playoff team? Because I think this team could sneak in.
Look, man, they got a steal. At the end of last season, Scott Skiles, he quit. He resigned. They wanted him for the future. He resigned. He didn't want to be there anymore. And the Indiana Pacers, Larry Bird made the move to not give Frank Vogel an extension or a new contract. So Orlando got a gem in Frank Vogel. He's a great coach. I don't know why Indiana ever let him go. And I like the moves that this team's making. Obviously, he's had influence on it too. Just the ability of them to get these big men, these guys that are physical big men that are perfect for the direction that the NBA is going today. I think they could easily challenge for a playoff spot this year. They almost did last year. At the beginning of the year, they started out almost in the playoffs. So they were above 500 a little bit. Then it started to break down as the season went on. But their roster top to bottom looks good right now. I like this Orlando Magic team. They've got a lot of pieces. I easily could see them making the playoffs. I like all the moves they're making. Now, let's get into some other teams. I know other winners, obviously Warriors, Magic guys. And here's some that were on the fence. We talked about this pregame.
Yep.
You said that you didn't like the moves from the New York Knicks.
I understand them. They are a better team now because bringing in Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah and signing Jennings and Lee. I think signing Lee and Jennings, those are some good deals. Derrick Rose, he has 1 year left. It's worth the gamble. They gave up relatively little to get him, so I understand the move. But he's not a reliable point guard anymore in my eyes. He's just too much of a liability. He's too injury prone. Joakim Noah, he was drafted in 2007. This will be his 10th season in the league. He's starting to break down. You can see that. He was hurt a lot of last season, and that's a result of him being the type of big man he is. Is he really a reliable 5 in this league now? I don't think so. Does this team fight for a playoff spot? Yeah, I think they're going to be, around 40 wins, maybe 45 they can push to. But this team, they're moves that I understand why they made them, but they're not great moves. And I just think that they brought in a couple guys who were shells of their former selves trying to force something to happen when it's not going to happen. But still, they're not a destination right now. It's not somewhere where you're going to get an A-list free agent. Kevin Durant didn't want to talk to them, and there's a reason for that. So,
here's the thing with the Knicks. They're a team that in the past and now don't have a lot of draft picks to work with. Trading away for the Melo deal, trading away for Bargnani. They don't have a lot of those. So Phil Jackson knew that, and now he's built it up where he has money to spend. And let's start out. I think the Knicks have had a very good, very solid offseason. And let's start out with the D Rose trades. You give up a guy in Jaren Grant, who's a young prospect who could still be a good player in the NBA, but he hasn't shown that much potential in his first year to be a superstar. Obviously, I'm not knocking the young guy, but I'm just saying it wasn't like you were giving up a top prospect in the league. So giving him up wasn't bad. You give up Jose Calderon, who's one of the worst starting point guards in the NBA as of last season. And also, you gave up Robin Lopez, who's a solid big man, had a very large contract in the 4-year, $48 million. They wanted to clear that. So trading away those 3 guys to get Derrick Rose, one, getting rid of those guys is a blessing in itself. And being able to get Derrick Rose in that deal, he has 1 year left on a max deal. So what the Knicks are thinking is, okay, Derrick Rose was an MVP. He's coming back from injury. He wasn't that bad last year. One could argue that it wasn't a good fit with Fred Hoiberg and the changing of coach, the scenery in Chicago. He needs a fresh start. And worst case scenario this year, in a contract year, which is very unlikely that he ends up playing horribly and then they just don't re-sign him in free agency. But it's a contract year for Derrick Rose. It's a fresh start. And the odds are that he'll play well for this team. So then you give up essentially nothing to get a point guard who can be one for the future. So I thought that was a great trade. And then look at this horrible Knicks roster last year. You had guys like Jose Calderon and Lopez with his contract. Those 2, you got rid of those. Aaron Aflalo, Derek Williams, and Langston Galloway, who was okay. Those guys, all those guys that weren't for the future, that are guys that weren't even going to be anything, they're gone. So Phil has done a great job in getting rid of the clutter and then signing Courtney Lee, who's going to be a starting shooting guard for them, a good 3-and-D guy. He's going to be solid. You got Brandon Jennings, a backup point guard who's trying to prove himself. You got him for a 1-year deal, and he's going to try to get a big contract, prove himself in the league. You got a few of Kristaps' friends, and Willie Hernan-Gomez and Kuzminskis. And also re-signing Lance Thomas, who's a good perimeter defender. I like all of these moves for the New York Knicks, and I think they moved up. I think they've had a good offseason so far.
Don't you think that Joakim Noah is a step down from Robin Lopez at this point?
Here's the thing with Joakim Noah. Obviously, I would have liked, if I'm a Knicks fan, I would have liked to see a deal for him in which that it was 2-year, $36 million. And obviously, with a guy of his caliber, he was all first team, all defense. He was a defensive player of the year a few times. Great in college. He's had a few injury problems last 2 years. He swears he's healthy. That's, I think, another guy who's trying to get a fresh start as well. And I think worst case scenario, even if he gets hurt again, he's going to mentor Kristaps Porzingis and make him reach his full potential as well. So the Joakim Noah was the one thing that might be a little shaky for me with all these moves. But the truth of the matter is he's going to be a good mentor. He's going to be a good guy to have in the locker room. And I've seen videos of the guy working out. He's been extremely impressive.
I mean, I love Joakim Noah. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. He's as real as they come. But he hasn't been healthy a lot. And I think from a mentoring perspective, yeah, maybe he can toughen up Kristaps, but still, it's a step down in that position from Robin Lopez to him. And you
I
also
don't
got to
think
think
so.
Robin Lopez, 4 years, $48 million. That's not that bad in today's game. That
Yeah,
really
but
isn't a horrible contract. And you go out and trade him for Derrick Rose. I know Derrick Rose has more upside, but you're really taking a gamble there. And my whole thinking is if you're not going to contend for a title, then don't make moves that are going to drastically change your roster and get rid of guys who might be better for your future.
they just
And I
want
think
to
that's what they did.
they just want to be the best team right now that they can. And they just want to make the best moves to win right now that they can. I think that's what they're doing. And I've liked a lot of the stuff that they've been doing as well.
I mean,
Now,
something's evident. I mean, Joakim Noah wanted to leave the Bulls for some reason, and they went out and made a few moves. And to me, they're one of my losers this year in the offseason.
the Knicks.
No, the Bulls.
Oh, the Bulls. See, I mean, that's the Dwayne Wade deal. I hope that's not one of your arguments because he has a player option after this year. That's a short deal. That's 2 years. And he's still, as we saw last year, he's still great. And last year he played the most amount of games that he's played in a while. He's healthier. He averaged 19 a game, and he's still just a great guy, and he can help. He's going to win games for Chicago. They're hoping that he can be their next push back into the playoffs. And Rondo could be a little questionable, but that's a short deal too. They're just experimenting in Chicago while they still have Jimmy Butler, and they got Robin Lopez, still have Taj Gibson, Mike Dunleavy, not anymore. He was traded to the Cavs. But I like a lot of the moves. I like the Bulls this year as well. I mean, the Rondo one, we'll see how it fits. Because I don't know if he'll have a player to keep him in check. Maybe Wade can, but I don't think they were terrible.
Oh, I think it was awful. The one thing Fred Hoiberg kept preaching about is we want to get younger. We want to have a good young core. He goes out and gets a guy who's about to turn 35 in Dwayne Wade, and a guy who's 30 years old in Rajon Rondo to surround Jimmy Butler, which I think is just stupid. If you think that Dwayne Wade's going to average 19 points a game again, you're wrong. He's not going to be nearly as productive. And Rajon Rondo has not been a good fit at any organization he's been in since he left the Celtics. So you're taking a huge gamble there. And I just don't think it's worth it. And I also don't think Hoiberg's that great of an NBA coach. I think he's better suited in college. He just doesn't have the edge to be.
I mean, it's been 1 year. It's been 1 year.
But his players don't respond to him. That's what I've seen. You have Jimmy Butler calling him out, even though it's subtle. He still called him out a little bit into the media, like we need to be held more accountable by our coach. You can't have a guy like that in the NBA. And I just think that this Chicago Bulls team, maybe they make the playoffs. They probably will with the roster they have. But they just wasted a lot of money on a guy who's about to turn 35. They got a lot older.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
I don't
matter.
understand why you have a guy in Jimmy Butler who has a ton of value. And I'm not sure. I'm looking up how many years left he has on his contract.
Jimmy Butler just signed a 5-year, $90 million deal.
5-year, $90 million deal. So he's 5 years remaining. And maybe you can keep him and try to make something work within those 5 years. But all I know is his value is huge right now. It's high. And this isn't a team that's gonna contend. And what the Oklahoma City Thunder is doing right now, and what they've did with James Harden, which I think is smart. They get rid of a guy before he just leaves. They get something in return, so that they got
nothing. They got nothing for Harden.
Okay, but they're gonna get something for Westbrook, and they didn't get much for Harden. Who they get? Like Jeremy Lamb and
they didn't get Jeremy Lamb. No, they got what's it called? They got Kevin Martin, Jeremy Lamb, and like a first-round pick, and all those things are gone now. They got nothing for a superstar.
Yeah, and I understand that wasn't a great deal, but they're going to get a lot. They're going to get a lot for Russell Westbrook. You can believe that because he's right now in his prime, and he has a lot more value than Harden did back then. And Butler's in the same boat.
It's not that much more, and who knows how much they'll get for Russell Westbrook. I know they'll get a lot, but he's a free agent after this year anyway, so it makes sense for a lot of teams to think, okay, do we want to give up this much for a guy who could end up leaving next summer? It's a big. I don't know.
And I mean, when the Celtics went out and got Kevin Garnett, they made sure that he would re-sign with them, and you can do that. You can try to get a guy who comes to your team and is like, I like what we have, what you guys have here. I'm willing to sign an extension with you guys if you're willing to trade for me because I want to win now. And if he's willing to do that, he can go anywhere. He can. Not anywhere, but any place that has the assets. And you could do the same thing with – you don't even have to do that with Butler. He's stuck wherever he goes, and he has a ton of value. And instead, they went the route of trying to get some guys who will help their team. But what's their peak right now? 5 seed? The Bulls I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I think they're just trying to see what works for them, what systems. They're experimenting a little bit, and they got a few guys who had star power in the league a few years ago and are really just trying to see what works for them, what doesn't. These guys they're rental deals. I know they're a lot of money, but it's only 2 years. 2 years a year.
And also Rondo only has a 1-year deal. I understand it, but it completely contradicts what they said they were going to do. And it's not the formula to have a winning team. It's just they just want to be good enough this year. And I just don't see the point of that. I just don't.
All right, talk about a loser. This is my loser of the offseason. The Memphis Grizzlies signing Chandler Parsons to a 4-year, $94 million deal. He's coming off an injury. We won't even start with that. Mike Conley being the highest paid player in NBA history. Are you kidding me? A guy coming off a torn Achilles and there's never been an all-star, a 15-point scorer who's had a reputation of being the most underrated player in the league, is the highest paid player ever. The only guys to ever get $30 million are LeBron, Kobe and Jordan. That's it. And Mike Conley, at him, a guy who hasn't even won a title, hasn't even been an all-star, and now is coming to a team where he just tore his Achilles. Is that a joke? Look, I know the Memphis Grizzlies are trying to build, and they're really trying to salvage the last few years that they have with guys like Marc Gasol, who's on a max deal, obviously. He's getting in his 30s. Zach Randolph is getting old. I understand that. I understand you're trying to make a push. But overpaying these guys to this extent is baffling to me. It's insane. Chandler Parsons, 4-year, $94 million deal. Are you kidding? Are you kidding me?
Oh, it's idiotic. Signing Mike Conley to that max deal, as you mentioned, after he had a season-ending injury, something that's really tough to recover from.
Not even just a season-ending injury.
Even if he didn't, yeah.
An Achilles injury, the worst.
Yeah, and even if he didn't have that, he's not worth over $30 million a year. He's a great point guard, underrated. You mentioned it, but still, to sign a guy like that to a max deal and take up that much cap room is ridiculous. And they had the cap room, but still, I didn't understand that deal. I also want to mention, I think the Spurs acquiring Pau Gasol is a really nice deal that they made.
Oh yeah, and I think I think he's going to be somewhat of a Duncan-esque role. I mean, he'll play the same-ish role as
he's
Timmy.
like 34, 35. You know, they're not expecting a ton out of him, but he's going to play that boy.
He'll be center for them.
Yeah,
L Train will still stay at the point forward. You'll see a lot less threes taken from Pau Gasol. You'll see him a lot more in his post game. It's going to be great for spacing. I thought it was a good deal as well.
Yeah,
but I wanted to go over a little bit. I just want to talk about this quickly as we're on free agency. There were so many reports. The 76ers are aggressively shopping Jahlil Okafor, Nerlens Noel, maybe even Joel Embiid. The Sixers are doing this. The Sixers they're going to make huge splashes in free agency. They're going to try this. This year's free agency class is not that good. Jahlil Okafor, Nerlens Noel, if they're trying to force trades with them, they won't get as much for them as they could. Now, I think since then, they've been building leverage for these guys, for trades for these guys, and they've been building it up so they can acquire more for them, which I praise the moves they've made recently. But a few weeks ago, saying they're aggressively shopping, that's horrible for leverage. It's horrendous. I don't get why they did that. But now, the fact that it's slowing down, I think that's good. I think that, and also, the fact that I didn't wait 3 years for this team to just tank for 3 seasons just for them to sign Harrison Barnes to a max deal. That's just insane. You know you're not going to be a great team next year. You know you're not going to be a playoff team. You know you just have a lot of young talent that you want to build around, like the Timberwolves do. So this team, the fact that they sign guys that are good scheme fits and that are good fits for the offense, for Ben Simmons, Nerlens Noel, like that, and they're going to be like 2-year rentals to showcase how good this team could be and maybe make it a more attractive destination for free agents. I like that. I like the Jared Bayless signing, and I like the Gerald Henderson signing. These are guys that can flat out score. They can shoot really well. They're here for 2-year rentals. You didn't pay them that much, and they're going to play in a good fit for Simmons. Simmons is going to handle the ball, and these guys are going to play off the ball, and they're going to attack well in transition, and they're going to be able to hit threes. So yeah. I like the moves they've made. I like that they haven't gone overboard with anyone, and I like how they're just seeing how guys that are good scheme fits work, and maybe they're just trying to slowly make themselves a good, attractive place for free agency next year, and also save up cap for next season where the free agency class is stacked.
Yeah, I mean, they made a couple safe moves, and that's what they have to do. They know the position they're in, and they just need to get a couple guys who have some who are veterans in the league. You know, this is one of the youngest teams in the NBA, and they're just trying to develop. They're doing the same thing the Timberwolves are doing, and I think eventually those two teams can be neck and neck and be two up-and-coming teams in the NBA with the guys they have. One thing you also have to think about, though, is Nerlens Noel is going to leave town next season.
You don't know that.
I don't know that.
And also, test the market. He's a restricted free agent, so the Sixers can match any offer.
That's true. So maybe he stays. Maybe he does stay. And then the year after that is Jaleel. Jaleel's up, but he's going to be a restricted free agent. They have a while. So
no, Jaleel still has a few years. Jaleel has like 3 years left.
Okay,
so he's not going anywhere unless they move him. And here, I think the Sixers need to just get guys that are good fits and try again to make this a possible landing location for free agents. And then next year they'll probably have a lottery. They'll have a lottery pick again next year. Try to get another good player, make it something along. Just get someone in free agency next season. Don't force it. I don't want to see a forced max deal on Harrison Barnes. I don't want it. No one wants that in this town. They didn't wait this long to get that. They want to try to, and look, it's probably not going to be the most desirable landing spot anyway. It probably won't be.
I mean, it's not. That's the problem. It's easier to get. It's easier said than done. There's not a lot of people who want to come to Philadelphia and play with the Sixers
right now.
Right now, because they have like three or 4 years until they're a really good playoff team, like an actual, above a bubble team.
I think
you got to develop.
They could make the playoffs as early as next season, and they try to compete. They have guy like Joel Embiid. It was just released today or yesterday when Brian Colangelo was in the booth at the Summer League game, how he's going to be, as of right now, he's going to be ready for training camp, and he's ready to go. He's going to come off the bench with a minutes restriction, and I think the starting lineup is going to consist of Jared Bayless, Gerald Henderson, Robert Covington at the 3, Ben Simmons at the 4, point forward, and Nerlens at the 5, with Jaleel, Dario Saric, who's officially coming here next year, and Joel Embiid off the bench. And then hopefully, ultimately, as the season goes on, Joel Embiid goes into that starting lineup with them. Maybe they start Simmons at the 3, Noel at the 4, Embiid at the 5. Okafor is a 6-man. Maybe that's what they're leaning towards. But the fact that things are starting to finally come together a little bit for this team, it's a good sign for Philadelphia. I think it is. And I think they're going to try to really just make that push in a little bit. Now, I want to go to the Celtics just for a little.
Yeah.
That was a huge signing with Al Horford.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought that was great. And then going on, they might trade for Russell Westbrook. I hear they're the leading candidate for that if they can get him. Having Russell Westbrook, maybe at the 2, Isaiah Thomas starting.
I'd rather have. I mean, the thing is, if you go out and trade for Russell Westbrook, you're gonna have to trade either Isaiah or Avery, and I'd rather trade Isaiah Thomas if you're gonna bring in Russell Westbrook, because having Russell Westbrook and Avery Bradley as your 2 starting guards is a lot better than having Isaiah Thomas and Russell Westbrook as your 2 starting guards. So if I'm Danny Ainge, I'd be shopping Isaiah before I'm shopping Avery Bradley, because it's just going to be a much better makeup. But I mean, as I was mentioning earlier, I don't want to trade away that Nets pick unless, or even Isaiah Thomas for that matter, unless you're getting Russell Westbrook to sign an extension. If it's a 1-year rental, I don't want him, because he's not enough to put the Celtics over the top. And you're just giving away that asset when that could be a potential number 1 pick, because let's face it, the Nets are going to win like 15 games this season. So I don't want them to go out and get Russell Westbrook if he's only going to be here 1 year. And I definitely don't want them to go out and get Blake Griffin if you got to trade that Nets pick regardless, because I think Blake Griffin is a little overrated. And they just got Al Horford. So why would you go out and get Blake Griffin?
Well, then they could put Al Horford at the center. I mean, I would still want Blake Griffin if I were in
I would,
Boston.
I would not trade. I would not trade that pick for him. I think there's better
They
guys.
would have to trade more than that pick for him.
What?
They would have to trade a lot for Blake
Oh,
Griffin.
I know that, and that's the thing. You'd have to trade that pick plus more assets, and I just don't know if he's really worth it. He does have 3 years remaining, but still, I want to see how this pick shapes up, and I'd rather get a DeMarcus Cousins or a Russell Westbrook before Blake Griffin. I think he's the next tier of player, and I don't want them to go out and get that. I know beggars can't be choosers, but the reality is that's a very valuable asset, and in a lot of these situations, the Celtics have leverage. The Thunder want to get something in return for Westbrook. They want to move him before the season starts to maximize his value. And the thing is, everyone knows that. They know that they're going to try to move him. And
Yeah.
so
I mean, here's the thing. If I were in Boston, I think Blake Griffin would work really well there. I honestly do. I think that.
do you think he's enough to beat the Cavs?
I don't know. It would have to see. I would have to see how things work out. I can't make any predictions right now. But look, they're trying to make this team the best that they can, and I think that the Celtics are the fact that they're pushing for another star to make this another contending team. I like that a lot. But anyway,
if you trade for Blake Griffin, you're gonna have to get rid of either Bradley or Thomas and maybe Jay Crowder. So then you're without two out of those 3 guys in all likelihood, plus that Nets pick, and you bring in Blake Griffin. So say it's Isaiah Thomas, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Blake Griffin, and Horford. That's not that great of a team. I'm sorry. That's not that great of a team. And I know they're not that great right now, relatively, but that's not enough to make that next step. If you're doing that, the only reason you're doing it is in hopes that you sign, an A-list free agent this offseason, which is a stretch. So I'd rather go and get Russell Westbrook or Boogie Cousins because those guys are the highest caliber. They're the top tier in the NBA. Both those guys are arguably top 5 players in the league. So why wouldn't you go and get that? I don't want Blake Griffin for that pick because I don't think he's going to help you enough.
well, we'll see. Obviously, we're just gonna have to wait and see what Boston ends up doing. But also, the All-Star game. Let's shift gears a little bit. All-Star game this weekend. I thought it was great. I think it's the only real All-Star event that left. Really, that's actually like worth watching. I love the MLB All-Star game, and I thought it was great.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because they play for home field advantage in the World Series?
Yes.
You see, I disagree. I completely disagree. Maybe that's why people tune in. I think the quality of game would not change. I was on ESPN New Hampshire the other night, and I was talking about this. With the NBA, you don't have to play defense. You throw up alley-oops, you have highlight reel dunks. Guys are displaying their athleticism, and no one's playing defense. And it's fun to watch because it's like street ball. No one gives a crap. With the NHL, you don't have to play much defense. Guys can have,
in the MLB, it's different.
Baseball, in the MLB, you're pitching. When you pitch, you're pitching. You're not half-assing pitching. You're trying to get the batter out. And when you're hitting, you're not trying to just hit home runs every time. That's not how the game works. That's not going to change if the level of the game is if the importance of the game is different. If it's for that home field advantage, it's not spring training either. No one's trying to work out their swing. They're going out there and hitting.
Here's what I meant. Okay, look, if it wasn't for look, all right, here, you misunderstood me. Obviously, guys aren't going to half-ass pitching or half-ass hitting. But you have to admit this also. The fact that they play for just something, it makes it held in a higher regard and also gives more guys incentive to play as well. Because, and if you're a guy like maybe, I don't know, like Cole Hamels or Noah Syndergaard or Jake Arrieta, and you're borderline healthy or you're healthy, you're going to want to play in this more. Obviously, you're going to want that home field advantage element to the game.
Okay, what if you're on a losing team? What if you're on a team that's below 500 and you know that this game means nothing to you? I think for everyone involved in the game, they're going about it the same way. It's fun to be there. It's a fun atmosphere. Obviously, the stakes are kind of high, but it's still overall a fun atmosphere. It's not about, we got to win this game. We got to win we got to have home field advantage for the World Series. I don't think anyone really gives a crap about that. I think they do to an extent, but it's not the main thing. The reason you're there is because it's fun. It's an honor to represent it's an honor to represent your league, and it's an honor to play with the best. That's it. I just think it's a better competition because you can't. It's unlike football or basketball or hockey where a lot of it's just finesse. You're just going out there and playing. It doesn't matter the stakes. You're going out there to play, and I think the fact that it's nationally televised, everyone's watching it. It's still going to be just as fun for the players and just as much of an adrenaline rush. I just think it's silly. It's silly.
I like that they play for home field advantage. I really do. I like that.
I think that's one change Rob Manfred needs to make.
I don't, man. I think that why I think it's perfect the way it is. I don't think they should.
So if you have a team like the Cubs who could win like 100 games or whatever, they go up against the Red Sox in the World Series who slip into the playoffs, winning 88 games and winning their wild card round and somehow making it to the World Series. You think it's fair that the Red Sox have home field advantage over a 100-win team?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of different circumstances. I just think overall it's good for baseball that it's like that. I think it adds an extra like feeling to the All-Star Game to make it a little more serious, and I like that because it's the only serious one left. But
I mean, it's the highest rated, that's for sure, and I think it's the most fun to watch. But again, it's not because of the stakes; it's because of the game. It's because of the sport itself. Let's move on to final thoughts. Mine is just going to be on Deflategate. Obviously, this is beating a dead horse. I'm not going to say the thing is this isn't about Tom Brady anymore. I've mentioned this a ton in our podcast and on our show. It's about the CBA, whether it's fair that Roger Goodell has that power and whether he's abusing his power or not, which I think he is. My one problem is if you are a fan of another team and you're a fan of the NFL, or if you are a player on another team in the NFL and you are happy about this verdict, you are so blinded by your fandom, it's not even funny.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I agree with you, man. I think that it's been ridiculous, and we saw a tweet earlier too. We'll rename this nameless, but someone saying that if this goes to the Supreme Court, then it's a joke. And then I was thinking about this. You were thinking, and we saw the response too. Yeah. Workers versus unions, like issues between workers and unions and corporations. And that was true. It is. The NFL is a huge greedy incorporation, and I think this is a big issue. And I just can't wait for it all to be over. Honestly,
I mean the NFL is the most corrupt league in professional sports. And that's the most important thing. And it's the biggest. It's corrupt, it's huge, it's powerful, and you should see that. It doesn't matter that these guys make millions of dollars. It's the worst sport post-retirement. You have awful health. Your life expectancy is automatically 10 years less than the average person. And even at that, your last 30 years of life are horrible. It's bad conditions for a lot of these guys who you play over 3, 4, 5 years in the NFL. And still, Tom Brady's not going to play. My team doesn't have to face him in week 4, whatever it is. It's silly. You should be upset. It doesn't matter what team you root for. You should be upset by this.
I agree. I completely agree. My final thought, been watching a ton of Summer League all around the NBA. Love seeing what I'm seeing from second-year guys. Love seeing what I've been seeing from like rookies. Like Thon Maker's been killing it. Chris Dunn, obviously I paid more attention to the Sixers. Ben Simmons, his court vision, his ability to run the offense, run in transition, get a rebound, and go. I'm so excited to watch him play this year. I think it's going to be a great season.
Absolutely.
And
go on.
And I was just going to wrap things up here. But what are your thoughts on what you've seen from him so far?
Oh, I mean, the court vision on this guy as a small forward is unbelievable. You don't see that from a lot of guys at that position. One guy who comes to mind, obviously, LeBron James, and he's compared himself to him. I think Simmons, as many do, has the potential to be a superstar. And if I was a Sixers fan, I'd be extremely happy. And as we were talking about earlier, in a couple years, maybe even next year, who knows, that's a free agency destination for a lot of guys just because Ben Simmons is on that team.
Yeah, and I think it Could be too. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to predict anything because there's still a lot of unanswered questions, but I'm excited. So that's going to do it for us here at the Jon and Lebo Show. Thanks for listening in. We'll be back trying to do one of these once a week. Twitter handle at Jon and Lebo Show. I'm at JSocki, JSOKKI.
And I'm at LeboJR15. That's LEBOJR15 on Twitter. So follow me there.
All right, and thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in. We'll be back to. We'll try to get some guests over the summer. If not, the high-profile guys will be rolling in starting in the fall. Thanks a lot. Take care.